So these are the requirements in order to use the Rcloud app, all right? So you must have a DM32 Wi-Fi that's enabled. Some of you may have gotten your DM32 non-Wi-Fi, but you can actually upgrade the unit to be Wi-Fi, reaching out to support at retrotec.com, and there's actually a code that you can enter with the configurator and actually get your DM32 to become Wi-Fi enabled. So, and you do need an Rcloud account. We're going to talk about that. And currently, we're working off of Windows, either tablet or PC. You can run 8.1 or 10. It does not work on a Windows phone. There's a different configuration and other issues that are here. So it is working on your standard tablet or any kind of a laptop that you might have. Coming soon, which we did not agree to our mid-March, but we are working on it as of right now. So the Android tablets and phones are being also developed. And then hopefully around April, mid-April, we'll have iPad versions or iPhone versions. So the ultimate goal is that most everybody has a cell phone that'll be able to do these. So some people may have tablets or other devices that may be more user-friendly or able to be see the screen, but most people can actually be able to pull out their phone and run the entire Rcloud app as we once those are fully released. Okay, so I do not have any official polls, but here's one that actually is a general poll. If you could, let me know what kind of devices you have. Several of us have many of these devices. So if you could let us know if you have an Android tablet or phone or Apple iPad or phone, or if you already have the Windows tablet or PC, that's the most common one. Especially if you have the Android or Apple, and you could let us know if you're interested in also helping us with beta testing, will be very valuable. So if you could chime in, if you're out there and yes, you'd like to help with beta, those are great things to know so that you'll be one of the early people to get released for the Android and the Apple version. Okay, so here's your basic ways of getting started. There's a couple different paths to get Rcloud installed, and we're going to try and go through them without it being too confusing, but you're basically going to download and install the Rcloud app, all right? And you're going to set up your Rcloud account, all right? So we're going to kind of step through what those processes are. So again, currently we're only working on a Windows environment, so you can actually download that directly from Microsoft Store, and if you go to the store, you can enter and search for Retrotec or Rcloud. You'll have much better success with Retrotec because lots of things have cloud in their name and you'll get a laundry list of things, but Retrotec will pretty much take you right there to the Rcloud app. And some of you may be doing this as we speak, so that's okay if you want to multitask. We do require you to kind of pay attention, but for today, if your attention level goes down because you're trying to multitask, we're going to accept that, but you must still stay for the entire webinar in order to get your PPI credits. So you cannot leave early to get those credits, so you must be here for the whole webinar. Okay, so the Rcloud account is really just a retrotec.com account. Many of you may already have a retrotec.com account, but there's features that you must be activating in order to make the Rcloud features active, and you're able to use your other devices to do that. There's one or two ways that you can do that. You can actually create a new account in the Rcloud app itself. Obviously, your device, let's say it's a tablet, must have an internet connection in order to do that. It could be a Wi-Fi connection, just as long as it's connected to the internet to create and fill in all the fields where when it goes to the website to do that. Or you can go to retrotec.com and you can sign in your existing account, or you can register for a new retrotec.com account, and we have some screenshots that kind of will walk you through this. Okay, the option one is if you're going to sign in on your tablet or your remote device, right, and you're doing this through the Rcloud app itself. But there's a little, obviously a little icon here that says create an account, and this will basically open the browser that you've already preferenced in your device, and it will take you to the same page we'll show in a second, which is the retrotec.com login sign up page. At the very top of the retrotec.com, you'll see a little thing that says login or sign up. And at the top there, that's actually where you can create an account or sign in for that. So select login and sign up. So we're going to assume that you may or may not have an account as we kind of go through here. So if you do have one, then you're going to enter your email address and password. You probably were prompted back in December and January to make sure you reconnected or reestablished your accounts and confirmed your password. So if you haven't, it may ask you to do that again. So clearly there's a button to create a new account, or we're just going to sign in with our existing account that we have. And of course, if you forgot your email or password, those things can be sent out to you. Most of this is like many of the stuff we've signed up for many a times for a variety of web services. So there's nothing new or different about the things you're going to be entering. The one that's crucial for your retrotec.com account to make it a Rcloud account is that there's a little field where it says, it determines if your Rcloud account in either says yes or no. If it says yes, you have an Rcloud account, which means you can use the app and sign in with the same credentials you had of email and password. If not, you want to make sure this is active. So if you're signing up for a new account, make sure you click yes, or if you have an existing account, you want to make sure that that gets converted to a yes. So here's your little button. Click here to activate your Rcloud accounts. That's for mostly new folks that are establishing an account. So again, nothing new here in terms of the kind of information that's there or that's required. I have this pop-up that keeps annoying me here. Let's just kill this. So no matter if you have an existing account or a new account, this checkbox must be active in order to use your other devices or to actually use the Rcloud account and all the features that it offers. So hopefully that made sense. It's very straightforward. Just make sure the box is checked. Okay, so let's move into, so when you're logged in, let's say that I obviously have created my account. Then once you've logged in, this same little tab at the top will now give you the features to use your Rcloud account, right? So at the top, instead of signing in, I've already now signed in, so my account is now active. Oops. Then I can access it by using tapping the little new icon at the top of the website. Or under here, when I hover over the account login, you can see I now have my option of the Rcloud account by test, or basically can log out. So these are two ways to now access your data online. So the app works on two levels. One of which is it's what we call the mobile version, where you're actually going to be performing the test, and the other is actually the web portal, where you can actually see your tests and see the results and share them. And a lot of new features are coming along with what you can do online. But right now, these are the two different ways that you can actually use Rcloud. Again, web version here, or your mobile version on your mobile device. Right now, if you go to download Rcloud, it says Rcloud Beta. But by the end of the week, it'll no longer say Beta. It'll just say Rcloud. And all of your login, all of your account information will all stay the same. It was just a way of actually controlling how we release things to the Microsoft Store. So if you see it and it doesn't say beta, then that's actually the final release that's out there, but you can go download it right now directly from the Microsoft Store. So I want to do an overview of some of the features and options that it has. I personally have been involved in this project since the very beginning. It was part of the concept that we had that I felt that if you were going to write down the results from your blower door or duct test, that really was our industry deserved more than just writing things down on a piece of paper and handing it to somebody, or noting it, or knowing that you could have a lot of errors that can be part of that. And there's a lot of stuff that goes behind some of the testing that we're doing, whether you're just doing a general assessment, or your HERS rater, or weatherization. All of these numbers have significant impacts, and I thought things should be really more controlled. You cannot alter the data and have something as actually as uncorruptible as many people describe it. So these are some of the features we're going to step through. So you must again have a DM32 that's Wi-Fi enabled, but you can have any type of fan that you want to use, and we'll review that briefly. But the DM32 will work on any of the Energy Conservatory duct blaster or blower doors. There's a little speed control adapter that converts the signal. So even if you don't have any Retrotec equipment, then that's okay as long as you have a DM32 that's Wi-Fi. So when you first come to we'll call this the main home page, and I can either create a new test, or I thought I'd bring in that you can add equipment. It's one of the things it'll first do is prompt you to do this. You don't have to, but I definitely would encourage you to go ahead and do it now, and mostly just focus on adding your fans. One of the provisions is in there about how to add your gauges, but it's something that probably will be removed from later versions. But you do want to get your fans in there. And what happens here is that this is my account under Joe Tester, and it's the same way that I can access it online. What it does is allows me to use different devices. So let's say if my Windows device I can use on Monday, and maybe later that week I have my iPad, I can sign in and use any one of those once the iPad version is released. It doesn't limit you to the device. You're going to sign in and use your account, and all your equipment will be there. So you can see that there's information that I've entered online about Joe Tester here, and that's the email and your company. We're going to modify the HERS rater or some BPI information so that shows up on the final reports. And you just tap on the three dots and you can enter the serial number and the fans that you have. The My Addresses is something you can do to save addresses when you're entering the address as part of the new test process. One of the features that we're working on is to get this to be pre-populated online, so meaning that I can use my web portal to actually enter addresses, and then those will show up under My Addresses. So those are some of the features that are in the process of being developed. The goal is that somebody either in an office or yourself can enter several job addresses, and then when you open up Rcloud, it'll automatically import those, so I can just select on a job and then begin to do the test. So again, we're going to focus on the home page. This is now actually, I've already done multiple tests, and this is what the home page would look like. So the very top line, as you can read, it says it confirms that I'm connected, that I'm online, and what network I'm connected to. If you were working offline, then all of these maps would show up as gray because you did not have internet access to actually access this data. You can create a new test or tap on an existing icon here that shows existing tests that I have, and I can see all those tests, or I can actually just tap on the plus button in the corner to add another test to that same job site that I've already done. So I did click on the 1255 Main Street, and these are the 3 tests that I've done. And if I click on any one of these individual icons, then I can actually go see the test report for that job site itself. So again, this is what's already in my account because I've done multiple tests, and I can now see the data and share the data directly from the field from the test that I have. So to create a new test, I have some options. It's, let's say that I'm at a new job site, and I'm just going to hit create new test, and I'm going to step through that process. Or the other one, as I mentioned, is you can just tap the plus button in the corner, and that would be to perform an additional test at that location. So like maybe I've done the blower door, I've got the job site in there, I can go back to the home page, hit the plus button, and now I can actually add my duct tester results on there. Or maybe I'm doing a second duct tester test at the same location. That's one way to easily just add another test to the same location without entering the information. So once I select the type of test, all right, so I can either hit new test or existing test. It wants to know the type of enclosure, really the type of test. Some of the language is being slightly modified, so if you see something different when you open your version, it's because we're just trying to make it more user-friendly. So the 2 tests that it does right now is either a blower door test, which is a basic single or multi-point test, and it does a single-point duct test. Many of the industry standards that are out there are constantly being updated and added. I know there's a new ResNet 380 standard that we're trying to get integrated into this, and it'll probably be done next month. And it's very similar to other standards that we've already have access to. We do not have the ability to do a leakage to outside test. That's one of our goals later this year. But again, right now it's just a basic blower door test or a basic duct test. So you pick one. Here we're going to pick the blower door, and it moves you to the next page, which is to select the type of standard that I'm going to use. And right now there's currently 3, ResNet, Energy Code, or the Title 24. There are others that will be coming that include European standards, It is not set up to modify or allow you to create your own testing protocol. It's designed to follow a specific standard so that you know that your conditions were performed based on these requirements. So I can do the ResNet protocol, and on my next page it's going to ask me if I'm going to use a single point, multi-point, or repeated single point. Those are our options as of today. And again, the 380 standard is similar to the multi-point, and that'll be integrated as soon as we can add that to the program. So you basically can see you pick a type of test, pick a type of standard, and you move on to the next page. These are the individual test options that you have. So ResNet has 3 options. The IECC has a single point now, and we're currently working on a multi-point as an upgrade. That'll be similar to the 2015 code to do the E779 or E1827 test, so that is coming. And Title 24 has a single point and a multi-point. There is a repeated single point, but we haven't found that many people doing Title 24 were searching for that. So again, these will be the type of tests that we have currently that you can choose from. So if you did pick a new location, let's say I'm going to enter a new test location, this is the kind of screen that would prompt you. And the easiest thing to do is hit Get My Location, which is over here. And it can actually do a geolocation and try and see if it can isolate where you're at. And usually if it can, it will populate most of the conditions over here, which including street name, city, and zip code, all those kind of things. It does not do an address number. Most people are very familiar with geolocation if you use a smartphone. But one of the things that your smartphone does is it actually will reevaluate where you're at based upon a given map. So if you actually geolocated your actual location, you may find that you're in the middle of a house, not in the middle of the street. But Google Maps, Apple Maps wants to reorientate you and say, oh, you're probably in the middle of the street, because that's where most people are as they're driving down the road. So you need to enter your address and then confirm you're on the street name, because if you're on a corner, it may have picked the wrong street. But basically, once you've got your basic information, a few other things are pre-populated for you also. It also goes and gets your local weather conditions based upon this address. It also gets my outside temperature because I have weather, and elevation, where it's crucial for some of the blower door tests that we also do. You still need to enter a few basic parts of that information, and that is that I need to make sure I enter the volume of the area and also the interior temperature. So one of the things that can happen, though, is if you have hit Get Location, it may give you a error, and basically it's based upon the fact that if your device is not 4G or 3G enabled, let's say you have an iPad or an Android device, but it's not actually a 4G device, you can still use other devices to get your internet access, like maybe your phone has created a hotspot, or you've connected to maybe a mobile hotspot that you have that's, Verizon or Sprint or somebody. And sometimes it may or may not be able to geolocate your location because it's not a direct source as its internet connection. So you may have an error here saying that I cannot confirm that you're anywhere near the job site. And mostly it's because of the type of device you're using with the connection. Okay, the other thing I can also do is it will, if it does happen, will confirm, says I can tell that you're within a certain distance of this area. And it did actually, again, find where I was located. And the next step is to actually go through and also found my weather. I also can do a thing called My Location. So My Location actually says, okay, can you put me on the map, is basically what it is. And it will go and find other information that may be including Zillow or similar alternative sites that can actually enhance the information that we're looking for. So if it is an existing home, clearly you can't do this on a new home, but if it is an existing home, then it will go to Zillow and it will find year constructed, floor area, a variety of other things that will help you populate all the things you don't have to enter automatically. So most of the data is out there, and you can override any of these conditions if you felt they were incorrect or you got to the job site and found out that that was not what you'd found. So again, you're going to enter the volume and indoor temperature, because those things can't actually be found anywhere and need to be on site and entered. So on the next page, it's going to ask you to set up and enter your equipment. So the thing you really want to do is you're going to select find gauges. And again, you should have your DM32. We're going to talk about how to make these two connect or communicate through a network in a couple of slides. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to hit find gauges, similar to the same things you may do on the other mobile apps that are out there with Retrotec, from a gauge remote or even virtual gauge. So I'm going to tap find gauges over here on the right side, and it shows here what's connected in my little red box over here. So clearly I have no gauge or fan connected, and now it found a gauge after selecting it. It says, okay, here's your gauge, and it shows that I actually have it on my little red square, and whatever fan is already in your gauge when it's connected is what's assuming the type of fan you're going to be using. But I can also change that right here. So I can actually tap on my saved fans and enter the type of fan that I want to be using. So if I'm going to do a blower door test, I can actually change that. So once you have the type of gauge connection, you know what type of range and fan you're going to use. Then down here at the bottom it says start test. Once you go to your test, then the only you can do is come back and change your basic setup with your fan. Otherwise, if you're going to go back once you've started your test, then you cannot change the location or any other conditions. It'll ask you to restart and abort the test actually. So at the top of the test we have our type of test. It gives us a baseline graph, the results, all the basic stuff that you would be expecting to see as the test goes. So this is actually a live test. We've already done the baseline. Shows me my results. Your results also will pop up, especially for ResNet type of test. It'll tell you that if you're within standard accuracy, or if you're reduced accuracy, or if you have exceeded the baseline, and you must choose a different type of test besides the single point. So it does also evaluate those kind of conditions and make sure that you're not doing the type of test that doesn't actually pertain to your specific baseline requirements. Okay, so one of the things that is specific for Windows is that if you're using a Windows tablet or laptop and you leave the application that you're using, any other devices that it's connected to, Windows says you must stop making those connections. So that means that it will separate your connection with your gauge if, say, you hit the Windows button or go check your email or do something else. That if you go to do that while the test is running, you'll come back and it says you have a gauge error. It's lost connection, cannot continue. So you really need to actually restart the test. So the point is, while the test is running, just hang tight and let the test complete itself before you try to go to another app within your device. So I don't know if that'll be the case with Apple or Android. Those things usually are allowed to do other things on the gauge remote. I can usually leave that, answer phone calls, and do stuff, but on here for Windows, it will actually separate your gauge. Okay, so once the blower door test or the duct test is complete, it will show me my results and give me my information that I have here. It tells me what type of device I used, what the range was, serial number, and my actual CFM results. And this baseline was clearly done on a very nice day with no wind. So I can see all of these. And if I don't like something, or if I can see an outlier in my results, I can just hit the bottom button and hit retry. And it'll perform the test again. It'll ask you if you want to keep the baseline or redo the whole series of the test. So I can just hit the accept button here in the bottom right corner if I want to accept the results. And on the next page, I get my actual report. And I couldn't fit it all into the screen, so the lower section shows up on the right side here, just so you kind of can see the information that's on here. So it basically, starts with who's doing the test and what my information is. Was my location able to be verified? It tells me that it was not, right here in false. And it tells me the address and some test conditions and from the local weather station, and what type of results I had from my tests. So you can see over on the right side are the things that most people are focused on. And they changed some of the language here to make it much clearer so you understand what nominal, corrected, and adjusted are, with some either more information, or they have a little help feature so you understand whether or not it included the baseline in these readings and understood what your results were. You can also click on the gauge serial number to see that the certificate that it is actually in compliance or in calibration directly from Retrotec. There are features which I know we'll be getting questions on here if they're not there already, is we will be able to add your logos and some other basic things that will actually identify you as your own company. Those are the kind of things that we're working on right now to spiff it up and allow it to be something that's much more personable or customizable. So I can view individual reports. I would have gotten here back from the main page and selected the address and selected the individual test that I had done. And you can now also see it on a map. I can also select to email this report to somebody, and depending on what email application you use, it'll all set that up and send that out. And we'll get a report that it's very, this black and white, somewhat kind of a bland report. Our goal wasn't that you needed something flashy. It was just that this was basic information. I didn't need to give them a whole 12-page report about a compliance report from a blower door or duct test. So it really was designed to be kind of a pass-fail type of a criteria. Any questions that we need to address, Jay?
Yeah, we do have two similar questions. One asking, both are about the testing standards that are included. So one asks, Colin asks, will it be updated to BPI standards?
BPI doesn't have an actual blower door standard to follow. They actually have, their 1200 and similar standards. They don't have like a blower door requirement in terms of compliance. They just have a guideline as to performing certain conditions. So there may be something local, or your requirements with some weatherization groups have certain criteria. But for us, the standard is to follow a methodology that says that certain conditions were followed, certain test times were followed, and those are really more of the requirements to go along with that. Hopefully that answered the question.
So, and then on a similar thought, Steve asks, what protocol would you use if you were working in a utility incentive program and if it did not align completely with one of the standards that you have set up?
The most basic blower door test that many of us do, which is to take a baseline and get a reading, is actually the single point IECC, Energy Conservation Code. So that's the one that most people are following as the most common test. When you think about just a basic blower door or weatherization blower door, that actually the code compliance test is very similar. In fact, it doesn't actually require a baseline for 2012, but we included one because we just felt that that was just best practice and should be there. So that would be the one to probably follow if you weren't sure any others.
And then Stephen is interested to know when this will be available in the UK, in Britain.
I don't have an update on the time frame for that, but definitely, Stephen, if you want to send an email to rcloud@retrotec.com, let them know where you're at and what standard you're looking for. We gladly could use you for some beta testing, so we appreciate you reaching out to us. Okay, this section is somewhat challenging in terms of that there's so many options. So I tried to rarely ever put this many words on a single slide, but I chose to keep it on here. So this is the one thing that you must truly understand in order to do some of the things you do on your mobile device or your cell phone, that these are some of the challenges. All right, so we know that the DM32 must be Wi-Fi enabled. We've conquered that. One of the ones that is misunderstood is that you cannot connect your DM32 with a USB cable. All right, so let's say you're going to use your PC, or maybe you have a Windows tablet and they have USB connections on the side. You cannot connect your gauge with a USB connection. The only way to make these connections is to connect it with a Wi-Fi network. So that actually goes in line with if you're going to use Apple products, they do not allow really devices to be connected with their port on the bottom. All right, so we're going to talk about the DM32, that it can generate a network, and there's a typo there. But one of the things I really want you to understand is be familiar with the device you're using for the Rcloud app. So some people you should know if it's 3G or 4G enabled. Sometimes people aren't sure, or if it's Wi-Fi only. So if you have a tablet and you're not paying to have internet connection or have internet anywhere, then you probably have a Wi-Fi device only. We're going to talk about the details about how to connect these two, but you should definitely make sure you understand your Wi-Fi networks. The name, the actual name is case sensitive, as well as the password if it has one. And be familiar with how to generate a hotspot with your device, one of the methods you may actually be using. So my question out there for folks that I ask when I do this live is, can you use your, let's just say your cell phone and create a hotspot? So if I can get an idea of those who be like, oh yeah, I can do that anytime, because you can get other things to join this hotspot. So a hotspot is sharing your internet connection on that. So if you could let us know that, yes, I can do that, or I'm not sure yet. It's mostly just kind of a self-check, because the more savvy you are with how to use your devices, the easier some of these connections and these challenges may become. Okay, so let's do a quick check here. Who owns a DM32? And you can say DM32, or you can say DM32 with Wi-Fi. So I kind of get an idea about the folks that are out there that have the DM32 but may not still have Wi-Fi. So if I can get an idea about folks that are out there that have the Wi-Fi, that'd be great. So a lot of familiar faces again out there. Rob Novak has joined us. Rob has been a back scene helping us with many of our webinars, so we appreciate he's doing a beta test, and many of you may be doing beta testing with us. So if you're doing that, there was an update on the version that's online, and there will probably be another update before the end of the week. All right, excellent. A lot of so some people have both. Again, you must have the ability to connect your device. We're going to just call it a Windows tablet for now, to the gauge, and there's multiple ways to do this. Reason I made the slides and as a PDF is so you can actually review some of these challenges that are out there. So your DM32 can either join an existing network, or it can also create a network. So we're going to kind of step through some of those things that are out there. If you have a DM32 that's near you, I recommend you have grab the gauge so you kind of can follow along also. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so to go to your network settings, you actually will tap settings and then go to the second page with your three dots, and you'll see at the top it says network. And whatever is the last selection you had or what you're using will sit there. So you may have actually have join, create, disable, wired. So those are your different options that you have if you have Wi-Fi on your gauge. If you don't, then you do not have those options. So once you can know where the network is, it's similar to many of the other types of settings in the gauge, which means if you tap on it, it'll actually change from join to create and some of those other options. So we're going to go with the first step is that it will join your network, right? So again, I hit join, and one of the things you want to make sure you're aware of is once you hit join and you have join in the top area, then I tap on the Wi-Fi symbol in the bottom right corner. That will bring up the Wi-Fi settings on what you're going to join. So this network is the name of your network, and it is case sensitive. So if you have the ability to create a network, maybe it's on your phone as a hotspot, it is best to keep all lowercase. You cannot use spaces, or I would avoid any kind of like underscore of a line, and even kind of numbers, because numbers on the gauge, you got to go to another screen to do that. So something that's simple that you can actually put the name in. So once I tap on the network here, this little keyboard shows up, and that's how I can enter that. So if I'm switching networks, then this is my one way to join another network that's that you can have access to. There's two big differences with using join a network on the DM32. One of which is, does it have a password? So many of you may have a router in your house and it probably has a password. Depending on your device you're joining, it may have a password. So if it does not have a password, you can do everything currently right now in the gauge. I can hit join, enter my Wi-Fi name for the router, and then hit on the next page screen, it'll say is it secure, and I say no, and I can go to the home screen and it will connect to that network automatically. If it does have a password, okay, so if maybe you're trying to connect to your own home router or something that is a hotspot that has a password, if you're using an iPhone or something that can create a hotspot, it requires a password. So if that's the case, you're going to have to use the configurator. Again, this is temporary, that we're trying to come up with a system that will all work inside of itself in the Rcloud to do this, but right now I need to make sure that I set my gauge up to connect to this network. I have some slides on the configurator coming up. So we're going to go through a couple of different configurations and systems. So we're going to talk about what the device is, all right? So this could be a Windows, later it can be Android or Apple devices, but for right now we have a Windows icon. So this is a device that's not 3G or 4G, and you'd probably be considered that you're working offline, which means you've not connected it to something else to be online, like a router or a hotspot. So you can actually do all the things you want to do with Rcloud offline, and then when I actually get to an internet connection, it will either automatically or prompt you to upload your tests. So you do not have to have an internet connection to do that. But you do need to be able to connect with the gauge, which is just a Wi-Fi connection. It has nothing to do with being online. So the Wi-Fi is just a communication system that talks between the gauge and the device you're using. All right, so my network that I'm connecting to is actually the DM32. And I can actually tell the DM32 to create its own signal. So I can go back to my settings, and instead of hitting join, I can tap it again, it'll say create. I can hit the home screen, and now I'm going to tell my device to go connect to my gauge, and that looks something like this. I go to my network settings on my device, whether again Windows, Apple, or Android, and I can actually find my Wi-Fi. Your name of the Wi-Fi is DM32 and the serial number that's on your gauge. So if you've got more than one gauge, you want to make sure you're connecting to the right one, and now it shows that I'm connected. So now I'm actually able to run my tests using the connection between the two that's on the gauge itself. Again, there's no internet connection at this point. All right, so we can do it again, and maybe there's something else that you can also use to make this connection. So one of the things that some people will use is a router, and you can set your router up. Again, there's no internet connection. The router is just a means to establish a network between my device and my DM32. Now I'm actually going to tell my DM32 to join this network of the router, whatever the router's name is, and the best thing you can do is set your router up to not require a password. So I can actually just connect directly to my gauge, to the router, and easily connect my device to the router, and now everybody communicates together as a simple solution. So when I go to my device, I would actually say whatever my router name was, and it's now connected, and under join, I would actually have that same name under my connections that we saw a second ago. If you're really interested in doing this, do not try to download Rcloud at the job site and try and make a bunch of these connections or do this. I highly encourage you to practice some of these connections in your office or in your house before you go to the job site, just to make sure you know everything is communicating and you totally understand your options of connections. Okay, so another one is that I'm now online, but my device is not online directly. Again, it's a non-4G or 3G system. It's online because it's connected to my mobile hotspot. So this is another method that a lot of people have out there. You could use your phone or iPhone or one of these little mobile hotspots that you can get from your provider. And so this is actually what's going to create the source. These can be set up, the mobile hotspots or Androids can be set up without a password, and you want to be careful that you don't leave that on other public places. But the iPhone actually will require a password. So I can use my mobile hotspot to now connect the two devices together, similar with a router, except that now I'm actually online. the router did not assume that I was online because there's just a device to connect the gauge and the device itself. So when you have the mobile hotspot, or you're using your phone as a mobile hotspot, many times you can actually get geolocation to work. It does a pretty good job of understanding where these devices are, and can help you geolocate where you're at when you're at the house performing your test. Okay, so this is the one that'll be, we think, more common, is that you have a device that is 3G or 4G. So this could be your phone, it could be a tablet that you actually have a service set up for on it. So it is online all the time, and it has its own internet source. So I can now actually get my gauge to join directly to the device, whether it's, again, my phone or the tablet itself. Right? One of the things that can happen is that when basically the easiest way to do is to set up a mobile hotspot with the tablet, and I can now join this on my gauge itself. So this is the best method to do your testing options, is to have a device that has that. Again, I think a lot of people will be using their phones once we roll out the other options between Apple and Android. Okay, so many of you should be familiar with the configurator that you have if you have a gauge, because the configurator is the same thing that will also update your gauges. Do you have a question?
Yeah, before we go into the configurator, I had a couple questions here, or basically same question. Mark wants to know about syncing offline data. So he was asking if it will sync, or if we planned as a future feature to make an automatic sync for offline information.
Yeah, that actually is in place right now, Mark. And so what happens is, let's say I'm in the offline mode and I perform a series of 3 tests today, and I get back to my office, and then I connect to Wi-Fi to my device, and I open up, you have to open up Rcloud in order to get things to sync. It doesn't just perform without the application being opened. So I go back to my office, I open Rcloud, and it will automatically upload the data that's on there. The data that's stored is encrypted inside your device until you open it back up and say, okay, I want to upload this. So that's your best path. That's your way to do that, is to open it back up, and you can upload those files. Hopefully that answered your question. So it is already integrated, yeah. Okay, so again, you should be familiar with the configurator in many ways to update your firmware on your DM32. Whether it's Wi-Fi or not, you must keep your firmware up to date. So you can download it from the Retrotec website. And these are the steps that are on here. Many of you are familiar with this, but this was designed for somebody who was brand new with the configurator. So you're going to download and install it. And then you should restart your computer, because that's what actually activates the software itself and makes it able to communicate easily with the DM32. So many of you already have this installed, and when you first open it, it'll tell you if there's an update, but you must be online for that to do that, obviously. So the thing to remember is that you open the configurator, make sure your DM32 is off, and you'll connect the USB to the computer and the DM32, and it will turn on your DM32, and it's 99 times out of 100 will be found on your configurator. If not, then I would tell you to shut off everything again. You may need to restart. A lot of these have to do with the drivers that are built into Windows. So it isn't necessarily the configurator, it's that the driver has to be able to find the gauge, and sometimes restarting is the best way to do that. So in order to change the network, because that's one of the things that we have to do here, is we're going to select network from the bottom. Okay, many times you'll be using it to do firmware, which is on the right corner, and what we're going to do now is actually we're going to change the network setting. So let's say we're going to be using a network that has a password, and I want to tell my gauge, here's the password, so I can actually get my gauge to connect to my Windows device that has that type of password, or a router or hotspot. So my gauge has been found. It appears on the right side, and it will also prompt you that whether or not your firmware needs to be updated. So that's what have been showing up automatically. So when I pick on network, there's a few things that I want to do. So I want to select the join, because I'm going to get the gauge to save all the requirements I need to join an actual network. Everything else is kind of like, I just kind of leave it alone, to be honest, here in the top part. So I think I'm going to hit join. I need to enter the network SSID name, and it is case sensitive. And this is a secure network because it has a password. So we're going to check the box and enter the password exactly as the password is. It's definitely case sensitive. You don't have to worry about advanced. So here's your basic method to connect something that does have a password on it, is to hit join, enter your information exactly as you need to. So it's very straightforward. Our goal is to try and integrate this into Rcloud so that you can try and make connections directly through Rcloud and the device without having to use a PC to do that. So that's our goal. I do have some, Greg is asking about the costs. Got it. It is coming up. It's one of my last few slides, but we will get to it here. And here it is. What do you know? Fee structure and billing. Okay, so I will describe it, and I try to do slides that would also explain it. So as of right now, it's $2 for each blower door test and $2 for each duct test at that job site and within a 30-day window. Okay, so you can do as many blower door tests as you want. You can do as many duct tests as you want at that same address and within a 30-day window. Those are all, anything else are free. Okay, so I did kind of do an explanation here. So on May 2nd, I did a blower door test, and so I get $2 just because I did one test, and I can do as many as I wanted. All right, that actually was supposed to be May 12th on the last slide. So here it is. Again, I kind of gave you a scenario of what many people may be doing, part of their weekly or monthly kind of system here. So my goal was that you can see that each the tests that are happening are all within a 30-day window. All right, so it's not a calendar window. It's actually from the first day I did a test. I have 30 days to do multiple same tests with no additional costs. So over here on the left side, let's say May 12th, previous slide should have said 12th also. May 12th, I did a blower door test, and on the 10th, I did another test. The second test was in 30-day window, so there's no additional costs. Again, we're all focused on the same address for each one of these houses. So if I did a blower door test and a duct test, as I did on the second house here, and I did one on my duct test on the 16th, then I actually have a 30-day window, and everything fell within the time frame. So I only get billed for one duct test and one blower door test. If you go all the way to the right, you can see that from May 16th all the way through June 12th, I did multiple tests at this location, and it was only charged for one duct test and one blower door test. So that's our fee structure, and currently everything will be free until September. And also that also depends on the development challenges that we have. So currently until September 1st, nobody will actually pay anything. So the version that's out there is actually now able to do these and see these tests and perform these tests. And you can also soon have that accessible for your other devices, is what we're also pushing for right now. The one thing that I'll add is the thing to please keep in mind is that, and I won't make it a question for you to respond of, is how many people own a Microsoft application, whether you're Windows or Mac. Chances are you must own at least one or two or many of them, or maybe you own a Windows machine. And many of you are also familiar with the enormous amount of updates and changes and requirements, and that Microsoft probably has, I would guess, over 1,000 people that are updating all of these apps and trying to facilitate all the different challenges and needs that are out there, and we still end up crashing and having problems. So software is one of the most difficult things to actually do and perform. Equipment is a lot easier to manufacture and make. And then we're actually complicating it by saying that I want this software to communicate with this other device that also has software. Hopefully, my reason I'm mentioning this is just to reach out to people that we're doing everything we can to make these things work seamlessly and effortlessly for you, but that does not mean that they also come with a challenge to try and make sure that they are always doing that. If you have any problems, please send them an email. If Rcloud crashes, the next time you're online, it will send a report saying, oh, it crashed and what are some of the conditions. But it can help us a lot if you send an email trying to help improve this. I feel strongly that this is where the industry is headed. I do know Energy Conservatory is trying to come up with something very similar, and the goal is that writing down your numbers will no longer be acceptable in several years, that you must use some type of automatic testing to confirm compliance or to confirm that your numbers were accurate. So a lot of other things are headed that way. I think that our industry deserves this type of accountability in terms of confirming that your results were what they said they were and where you said they were. So a few of you did chime in that you do have some Microsoft stuff. I'm a Mac person, but I have various window apps that I have to use in order to communicate with the rest of the world. So it's a necessary evil, as some people might say, but it also makes us very productive and allows us to do a lot of stuff. So please have some patience for those of you that are trying to do this or trying to connect. There are various people that are out there that are there to make sure this is successful for you, and any new software has its own challenges and glitches. So again, here's my final slide to remind you about send your email, features, requests, things you think will be better or worse or you're having problems with. If you really are trying to make connections work better, you can also reach out to support@retrotec.com in terms of calling them. But my goal is at least try and do an email first, so we might be able to just send you a quick response to explain what we've also learned from other users. Well, we did it. We actually did a webinar that only lasted an hour. So I appreciate everybody's time today. Please review the PDFs. You may find a few typos, and there is one on the billing that I just caught. So again, it is a 30-day window from the time of your first test. So again, Jay, you got anything you want to end with?
Nope. Thanks everybody so much for coming. Always so thankful for the folks that are staying up late in Europe that are joining us, and always thankful for the local folks who are here. And we really appreciate your time. So please come again, and we will see you in April.
All right, everybody, have a great day. Take care.